logic, flowchart, and pseudocode instructions. Introduction to algorithms. Algorithm is a sequence of instructions. It is also a step-by-step procedure or formula for solving problems. It is used for calculation, data processing, and programming. Algorithm can be expressed in any language. Algorithm procedure. Algorithm for making things will often be divided into sections. So the parts, components, ingredients, or the inputs which is required to accomplish the task, while the action, steps, method, or process of data is used to produce the required outcome or output. So we have an example here. To build a personal computer, the parts or components are needed, plus instructions on how to assemble the computer, and the result is the new computer model as an output. So two forms of algorithm. So the two parts of algorithm is the pseudocode and flowchart. For pseudocode, it is the counterfeit code because it's not really a programming code since it specifies only the steps required to accomplish the required task. It is intended for human reading, while the second form of algorithm, the flowchart, is a type of diagram that represents workflow or process. And it also uses special shape as different type of action or step in the process of a system. Pseudocode. So these are the advantages of pseudocode. First is to reduce the complexity of the desired system to develop. Second is to increase the flexibility of developing the system. Third is to understand for faster coding. Why pseudocode is necessary? The programming process is complicated and most especially on the starting point. Um, Second is you must first understand the program specification before proceeding on the coding. Third reason is you must break the main task that must be accomplished into smaller ones in order to write fully developed code since it is easier to understand the concept. And fourth is writing a pseudocode will save you time later during the construction and testing phase if the program development. We have here data dictionaries. The data dictionaries is used to describe the data used in pseudocode to do a process. A standard data type used in pseudocode are integer, double, string, char, and boolean. So we have here in the right side the visual representation of the variable name with respect to its data type. For num1, integer, shortcut is int. For num2, float. Then for sum, double. For name, you can use character. For number 1, you can use long integer or long int. For number 2, long double, or for location, you can use string, and to seed, you can use the boolean. So those of variable declaration. Do define the variable by writing the type, then the variable name. So I have an example here for float. My score is equals to 100. And another example is do use meaningful variable names. Example, my name, my age, or my favorite color. Do remember that other programming language is very case sensitive. So if you type the variable as score with a big letter S, that should be consistent in your coding. And also, do understand that the number of types, each data type that consumes in memory, and what value can be stored in variable of type. So we have an example here for float. The value of pi is 3.1416, and for int, number is equals to 100. So now we have here the don'ts in the variable declaration. Don't use any programming language keyword as a variable name. Example of this is float QWERTY is equals to 3.1416, or the int car a, because as stated in the example, int 1 my number is equal to 09876 would not be appropriate to use as a variable declaration. And as another don't use unassigned variable for negative numbers. Example for this is unsigned int my number is equals to negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here, don't use variable name with space. Example, int my age is equal to space 25. It should not have space between the variable. PsuedoCode example. So example number 1 here. Write a pseudocode that obtain two integer number from user. It will print out the sum of the two numbers. So first let's put the start, then initialize all the needed variables, and then for third is prompt the user to enter the first number. Then as said on the instruction, two integers number. Now in the fourth step, we need to define the second number. So prompt the user to enter the second number. Then as instructed, we need to compute the sum of those two numbers. So in step 5, we should occur to compute the sum of those two numbers. Then to satisfy the condition for step 6, print the result, then end the process. So we have another example. Here, write the pseudocode that will compute the average of at least three numbers. So as said earlier, first thing to do is start, then initialize all the needed variables. The third step is to prompt the user to enter the first number. And for fourth step, prompt the user to enter the second number. And for the fifth step, prompt the user to enter the third number. As stated in the instruction, it says that of at least three numbers. That's why we have in the prompting of the three numbers. Then after that, we need to compute the sum of those three numbers. Then divide the sum by 3. Then after satisfying the condition, we need to print the result. Then end the process. So example 3, write the pseudocode that will calculate the pay of a worker. First step is to start, then the second step is to initialize all the uh, variables needed. For the third step, input number of hours obtained by the worker. Then fourth step, input the rate of a worker. Then for the fifth step, we need to put a formula on how we can compute the um, rate of the worker per hour. So in the parentheses, you can see here pay is equals to hours multiplied by rate. Then after satisfying the condition, for step 6, we need to print the result, and for step 7, end the process. Flowchart. So for flowchart, these are the most commonly used symbol and functions. We have here the start and end symbol that also seen on the previous slides of the PowerPoint, wherein these are called the terminator symbol marks that has the starting or ending point of the system. It usually contains the word start or end. And process, action or process symbol. So as you can see, the process symbol is represented in a box wherein you need to state all the process that you need for your flowchart. And the third is for document symbol, you need to print the document or your result for your flowchart. So we have here the connector symbol. It indicates the flow to continue where the matching symbol or the same letter that has been placed. Then we also have the arrow symbol, a line which connects or shows relationship between the representative shapes. And the off-page connector symbol, this is used to connect the remoted flowchart portion on different pages. When this is used when one flow line enters or exits. So interpreting your flowchart, we have couple of steps to interpret the flowchart. First is to determine who is the involved in the process. The next step is to form theory about the root cause. The third step is to identify ways to simplify and refine the actions taken. The fourth step is to determine how to implement changes on the process taken. And fifth step is to locate cause added only steps for faster checking. And last is the step 6, wherein provide training for further knowledge. So there are different types of flowchart. We have here a basic flowchart which identify the major step in process in a simple and easy to understand way. They are used to familiarize a person or group with the major steps of the process by giving them a broad overview. Um, we have here in the right side a visual representation for a basic flowchart. Another type of flowchart is the deployment flowchart. This indicates the people involved in each step as well as this type of flowchart is useful when a certain process involves different department or areas. Um, I also included here a visual representation of deployment flowchart for your understanding. Another type of flowchart is opportunity flowchart. In opportunity flowchart, it may not be a simple moving from this step to the next or answering the single question at each page. For example, here at the left side, I showed visual representation for opportunity flowchart, and as you can see, this may show the steps taken when everything goes right, and the right side has the steps taken when the things go wrong. Opportunity flowchart has the order processing type. Process flowchart is another example of flowchart form. This is relatively a basic overview of process flowchart, which gives a full listing of the major step as well as the sub-step in process. For example, a process flowchart for the troubleshooting of machine might ask questions for the person or group to answer before going to the next stage. In this kind of flowchart, you need to answer the query or the questions before proceeding to the um, next instruction. So here are the example of flowchart. Example number 1. Draw a flowchart that obtains two integer number form user. It will print out the sum of those two numbers. So on the left side is a visual representation that satisfies the example number 1 flowchart. Another example is draw a flowchart that will compute the average of at least three numbers. So in the left side is the detailed instruction of how I made this flowchart, wherein I have here the start, then identify the variables, input the num1, num2, and num3, then we need to get the sum of the number. So to get the sum of the number, um, we should put the formula sum is equals to num1 plus num2 plus num3. Then after getting the sum, we need to get the average, and to get the average, we we need to arrive to the formula average is equals to sum divided by the three numbers. Then print the average of the three numbers, then end the process. So for the last example, draw a flowchart that will calculate the pay of a worker. So start, then initialize the variable and input the number, then make a set of formula wherein square is equals to number multiplied by number. After that, um, cube is equals to square multiplied by the number. And after satisfying the condition, we need to print the value of square and the cube, then end the process.